Welcome back to the shadows, where silence speaks and nightmares breathe. You're listening to Mr. DarXnights, where sleep dares not come easy, and the truth is always darker than the dream. Tonight, we invite you into a room that was never supposed to exist. A room with no records, but one occupant too many. Lock your doors, turn down the lights, and settle into the quiet, if you can. This is a true horror story of Room 313. The roommate who wasn't real. I had always dreamed of escaping my small town in Indiana. College was my ticket out. A fresh start. New faces, new life. When I got accepted into Marlowe University in Ohio, I didn't think twice. I packed my bags, kissed my mom goodbye, and hit the road with every ounce of hope I had left. Move-in day was chaotic. Cars backed up, parents hauling boxes, students laughing nervously. When I got to the dorm office to check in, the woman at the front desk was flipping through papers with a frown. "Name?" she asked. "Caleb Morrow." I said, handing her my ID. She paused. "Room 313? I nodded. She looked confused, but quickly masked it. "You're in Ashcroft Hall. Top floor. Here's your key. Elevators down that hall." I thanked her and made my way to the building. Ashcroft was one of the older dorms. Real brick and mortar feel. The kind that creaked when the wind blew too hard. But it had charm, at least from the outside. Inside it was dim. The lighting flickered, and the elevator had a musty smell. I took it to the third floor. My room was the last one at the end of the hallway. Room 313. The number looked faded, like it had been scrubbed off and painted over too many times. The door groaned when I unlocked it and pushed it open. The room was normal. 2 beds, 2 desks, 2 wardrobes. Typical dorm setup. My roommate hadn't arrived yet, I figured. One side was untouched, while the other had a duffel bag on the bed. I assumed that was mine. No name tag, no welcome note. I spent the next few hours unpacking, setting up my desk, and organizing my books. Around sunset, I heard the door click. A tall guy walked in, pale skin, shaggy dark hair, dressed in all black. He looked up at me and gave a short nod. "Hey," he said, "you must be Caleb." "Yeah," I said, offering a smile. "You're Eric," he replied, dropping his backpack by the other bed. "Nice to meet you, man." We shook hands. His grip was cold, dry, like he'd just come in from outside, but his clothes weren't damp. We didn't talk much that night. He unpacked in silence. Didn't ask many questions. Didn't volunteer anything either. When I tried to make small talk, "Where are you from? What's your major?" he kept the answers short. "Close by," he said, undeclared. By lights out, he was already asleep. No phone, no lamp, just rolled over and passed out. That first night, I woke up around 3 a.m. to the sound of whispering. Faint, low. I thought maybe Eric was talking in his sleep. I sat up, rubbed my eyes, and looked over. His bed was empty, but the door was locked from the inside. I figured maybe he went to the bathroom, but I didn't hear it open. I checked the hallway. Nothing. When I got back in bed, his side was suddenly occupied. He was there, eyes shut, breathing slowly. I didn't sleep much after that. The next morning, I chalked it up to nerves. New place, new routine. I went to class, met some people, tried to settle in. By the time I got back that afternoon, Eric was at his desk, scribbling something furiously into a notebook. "Hey," I said. No response. He didn't even look up. I leaned over and saw that he was writing the same sentence over and over again. "This isn't my room. This isn't my room. This isn't my room." I froze. "Eric." He snapped the notebook shut and looked at me. For a second, his eyes seemed wrong, unfocused, like he didn't recognize me. Then he smiled. "Sorry, man. Got carried away. Just writing something for class." I nodded, trying to keep my expression neutral. That night, I couldn't sleep again. Around 3:15 a.m., I woke up to the same whispering. This time, it was clearer. Don't let him take you. I sat up. The room was cold, freezing. I could see my breath. Eric was sitting upright in bed, staring straight at the wall. His lips were moving, but the voice, it didn't match his tone. It was deeper, distorted. Don't let him take you, it repeated. Then he turned his head slowly toward me, eyes still locked on something invisible. You hear them too, don't you? I didn't respond. He laid back down and didn't say another word the rest of the night. The next day, I went to the dorm office. I need to talk to someone about my roommate, I said. The same woman was behind the desk. Room number? She asked. 313. She looked confused again. That room was assigned to you. Solo. No roommate. I stared at her. There's someone living with me, I said. His name's Eric. He moved in the same day I did. She pulled up the digital registry. Scan. Click through files. There's no Eric listed for Ashcroft Hall. Room 313 was marked as single occupancy. It's one of the old rooms. They stopped doing doubles there 2 years ago. Something about structural limits and noise complaints. I laughed nervously. No, you're mistaken. He's there. Every night. His stuff's in the room. He has a bed. I talked to him. She gave me a strained look. You might be confusing rooms. Would you like to speak to our residential advisor? I left before she could finish the sentence. That night, I confronted Eric. They said you're not listed anywhere. No record of you living here. He smiled. Maybe I don't. I waited. What does that mean? He stood and walked to the wall between our beds. Placed his hand flat against it. This place forgets people, he said softly. It's easier that way. I didn't sleep. Over the next few days, my memory started to slip. I'd walk into rooms and forget why I was there. Call people by the wrong name. I even started hearing things in broad daylight. Footsteps in empty hallways, faint humming from vents, scratching behind the walls. One night, I woke up to the sound of something scraping. I turned on my phone flashlight and looked toward the noise. Eric was standing by the far wall, using a broken coat hanger to peel the wallpaper. What are you doing? I asked. He didn't answer, just kept scraping. I got up, walked over, and tried to pull him away. Stop, you're going to mess up the wall. But something beneath the wallpaper caught my eye. A seam. He had exposed the edge of a wooden board, sealed into the wall like a patch. The wallpaper had been painted over it to hide the difference. Help me, he said. I hesitated. Then I helped him pull the board loose. The smell hit us first. Rot, decay, damp and sour. Inside the hollow space behind the wall was a small crawl cavity, and in it, curled up in a fetal position, was a body, mummified, dried, flesh stuck to bone, still wearing a student hoodie. Name tag still clipped. Eric S. Maddox, Marlow University. I stumbled back, nauseous. Eric was gone. No footsteps. No sound. Just gone. I called campus police. They arrived, taped off the area, questioned me for hours, took samples, photographed everything. The body was real. They told me the remains had likely been there for years, possibly since 2018. Eric had been reported missing his first semester, never found, assumed to have dropped out. His roommate back then had claimed he left in the middle of the night. No trace. The weird part? Room 313 was his room. My room. They moved me out the next day, but I wasn't the same. I started hearing things in my new dorm, whispers at night, my own voice echoing back to me. Sometimes I'd catch my reflection doing something I wasn't, smiling when I wasn't. I looked up Eric's file in the library archive. Old newspaper clippings. He had been a quiet kid. Bright. Studious. But there were reports of strange behavior before he vanished. Paranoia, personality shifts, violent mood swings. Sounded familiar. I started dreaming his dreams. I saw people I didn't know, memories that weren't mine. I wrote in notebooks I didn't own. And every night, at exactly 3:13 a.m., I'd wake up to find the edge of my wall scratched, as if someone was trying to come back out. I didn't tell anyone about the scratches. Not the new RA, not the counselor they assigned me, not the student wellness people who kept sending me check-in emails. I told them I was adjusting fine, that I just needed space, that I was processing the trauma, the discovery of the body. What I didn't tell them was that I hadn't slept more than an hour a night since I left room 313, that I was starting to see Eric and other people, flashes of his eyes in strangers' faces, his voice echoing in professors' lectures, even his handwriting in the margins of library books I'd never opened. But the worst part wasn't what I saw. It was what I felt. There were moments I didn't feel like me anymore, like I was watching my life through a thick pane of glass, hearing my own words come out of someone else's mouth. I started keeping a journal just to track the things I knew were mine, my memories, my habits. My name, I'd write, I am Caleb Morrow. My mother's name is Linda. My favorite food is pancakes. I hate loud chewing. I have never broken a bone. Over and over. Affirmations of identity. Proof of existence. Because each day, it felt like someone else was moving into my mind. Quietly, carefully, rearranging the furniture while I wasn't looking. It started with small things. I'd open my closet and find clothes I didn't recognize. A black hoodie, a pair of scuff boots I swore I never owned. I blamed stress, lack of sleep. Maybe someone else was messing with me. But then my voice changed. During a group project, one of the guys said, "Hey man, did you get a cold or something? You sound different." I didn't hear it first, but I recorded myself reading a paragraph out loud. It wasn't my voice, not the way I remembered it. It was deeper, slower, a little raspier, almost exactly like Eric's. I deleted the file and threw the phone in my drawer. I started dreaming in first person, but from someone else's life. I walked across campus paths I didn't recognize, sat in classrooms I'd never attended. I felt a panic I couldn't explain. In the dreams, people whispered when I walked by. I'd hear phrases like, "That's the kid from 313, or "He never came back from break." And always, at the end of the dream, I'd be standing in front of a wall. My fingers would scratch at the wallpaper, desperate, until blood streaked the surface. Every single time, I'd wake up at 3:13 a.m. sweating, shaking, and always facing the same wall in my new dorm. I tried transferring, said I wasn't comfortable on campus anymore. The counselor smiled politely and gave me a brochure. "We understand trauma affects everyone differently," she said. "Maybe it's not about where you sleep, but what you're carrying." I wanted to scream, but I smiled and nodded and said I'd think about it. Things got worse when I found the notebook. It was under my bed, jammed between the floorboards. A battered, spiral-bound journal with the name Eric Maddox scrawled on the inside cover. The writing was frantic. Some pages were torn out. Others just repeated the same sentence again and again. "He's copying me. He's learning how to be me. He doesn't have a face yet, but he will." One entry stood out. September 19th. I thought the room was just a room. I thought the nightmares would stop once I left the wall alone. But it's in the room. Whatever it is, it wears people. It learns them. And when they don't fit anymore, it buries them. Then it finds the next one. I think I'm next. There was no September 20th entry. I closed the notebook and sat there in silence for a long time. After that night, the voices came back. Not just in dreams, not just behind the walls, but right in my ears. while walking to class, while brushing my teeth. You shouldn't have found a book. He's waking up. You're not real anymore. I stopped attending classes. I stopped replying to texts. I avoided mirrors. I kept feeling like they'd show someone else's reflection. Sometimes they did. I don't know how to explain it. One night, I forced myself to stand in front of the bathroom mirror. I stared for a long time. Nothing unusual at first, but the longer I looked, the less familiar my features became. It was like watching clay shift beneath glass. My hair looked darker, my eyes sunken, my jaw longer, tighter. My mouth moved a second before I did, and then the reflection smiled. But I didn't. That's when I smashed the mirror. Got written up by the dorm RA for vandalism. Said I'd pay for it. Said I slipped. They didn't push. They knew I was that kid, the one who found the body. I knew what they whispered when I walked by. He's cracked. He's faking. He's cursed. Maybe they were all right. The day it all came to a head started like any other. Gray skies. Cold wind. I hadn't slept in 2 nights. I sat on my bed, staring at the door. I was afraid to move. Afraid that if I stood up, I wouldn't be me anymore. At 3:13 p.m., exactly 12 hours before the time I always woke from the nightmares, I heard a knock. 3 soft taps. I didn't answer. Another knock. Louder. Closer. I stood and crossed the room, heart pounding. My hand reached for the knob, hesitated. Then I opened it. No one there, but something was on the ground. A folded piece of paper. I picked it up, opened it. Inside was a drawing. A pencil sketch of 2 beds. 1 figure in each. But one of the figures was blacked out, scribbled so hard the paper had nearly torn. The caption at the bottom said, "One of you has to go." I dropped it, slammed the door, locked it, and that's when I saw him, Eric, standing across the room, next to my bed. Same hoodie, same pale skin, but his eyes were empty, glossy, no pupils. "You're almost ready," he said. I backed away. "What do you want from me?" I asked. He tilted his head. "You opened the wall. You invited him out. Now he needs a name." My ears rang. My vision blurred. The room felt like it was tilting. "I'm Caleb Morrow," I whispered. "I'm Caleb Morrow." He stepped closer. Not anymore. Then he was gone. No fade. No blink. Just not there. I ran. I left the dorm barefoot. No jacket. Didn't even lock the door. I ran until I couldn't breathe. Ended up at the library. Empty at that hour. I found a corner in the back, behind a stack of dusty anthologies, and collapsed. I stayed there for hours. When I finally looked at my phone, it was 2:56 a.m., almost 3:13. I stood and started walking. I didn't know why. My legs moved without thought, like they remembered something I didn't. I ended up outside Ashcroft Hall, room 313. The hallway was silent, no lights, but the door was cracked open. I didn't remember unlocking it. Inside, the room was just like before. 2 beds, 2 desks, 2 wardrobes, but one side was sealed again. The wall, new wallpaper, seamless, like nothing had ever happened. I walked to it, touched it. It was cold, and then behind me I heard footsteps. Slow, barefoot. I turned and saw myself standing there, but not quite. The features were smoother, like someone had taken an image of me and blurred the edges. The clothes were wrong, the posture off, like a man in a Caleb costume. It didn't speak, just watched. I backed toward the wall. It stepped forward, and that's when I understood. There was no Eric. Eric was just the last version of me, the one the room wore before it needed a new skin. And now it was done with him. It had chosen me. I don't remember deciding to speak, but I heard my voice, calm, detached, like a teacher explaining a lesson I hadn't studied for. You're not me. The thing didn't blink. Its mouth twitched. A smile? A glitch? Hard to say. It looked like me, yes, but not all at once. Every second, something shifted. My hair was too thick, then too thin. My nose changed shape. Subtly, my ears elongated, then snapped back, like it couldn't decide which version of Caleb to settle on. Maybe it didn't need to. Maybe it just needed to be close enough. The thing took another step forward. I backed against the wall. The sealed wall. No door. No crawl space. Just wallpaper. Smooth. Clean. But I could feel it, alive beneath the surface. Like breath trapped behind drywall. The room was watching. Waiting. The fake me tilted its head. Like Eric had. Like I had. Like a gesture passed from one vessel to the next. Then it spoke. We need you to sleep. I shook my head. I'm not tired. It smiled wider. Lips too thin. Teeth too white. Then we'll wait. The lights flickered. The air grew heavier. My knees buckled, and I slid to the floor. I felt drunk, but I hadn't touched anything. My pulse slowed. My thoughts scattered like leaves in wind. They weren't just waiting for me to sleep. They were pulling me there. 100 whispering voices under my skin, humming lullabies in a tongue I didn't know. They weren't asking. They were sedating. I reached into my pocket. Something sharp. A key. I jammed it into my forearm, just enough to break the trance. The pain cleared the fog for a moment. The whispers paused. Angry. Disrupted. I crawled across the room to the desk, pulled out drawers, flung books aside, looking for anything. Anything to fight with. Anything to anchor me. At the bottom of the second drawer, I found a picture, faded, torn at the corner. It was a student ID. Not mine. Not Eric's. Another name, Mason Keller. Class of 2012. Same dorm. Same room number. Same story. Eyes hollow. Smile strained. I flipped it over. Scrawled in ink. It feeds on who you are. Give it nothing. Be no one, or it becomes you. My heart rattled against my ribs. It wasn't just me. It wasn't just Eric. Room 313 had been eating people for years. Not killing them. That would be simple. It digested them. Slowly. Took their voices. Their dreams. Their gestures. Their very being. Until all that was left was a hollow echo that wandered the campus. Forgotten by everyone. Replaced by a newer, cleaner copy. I was just the next course. I staggered to my feet. The copy was closer now. An inch from my face. And when I looked into its eyes, I saw my mother's kitchen. My 7th grade birthday. The scar on my left knee. My first crush. All of it playing in reverse. Like it was backing up my life. You're tired, it said again. You're ready? No, I whispered. I'm not. Then I ran. Through the door into the hallway. Past the RH room. Down the stairwell 3 at a time. I hit the street barefoot. Gravel slicing my soles. Wind stinging my face. But I didn't stop. I ran across campus. And I didn't go to my dorm. Or the library. Or the police. I went to the boiler room. The one beneath Ashcroft Hall. The one nobody used anymore. I don't know why I thought it would help. Maybe I just needed darkness I could control. Shadows that didn't watch. I curled up in the corner and sobbed. I don't remember falling asleep, but I remember waking up. It wasn't morning. It wasn't night. It wasn't anything. Just black, thick and endless. I stood up, or I thought I did. There was no floor, no walls, no light, but I knew I was in the room. Not a room. The room. Room 313. But it wasn't a dorm anymore. It was a void, a place that existed between. And then I heard them, hundreds of voices, all versions of me. He wore your shoes. He copied your laugh. You gave him your name. You looked into his eyes. And then another voice, clearer, closer, Eric's. You can't win, he said. Not by fighting. That's what it wants. It lives off resistance. The more you fight it, the deeper it feeds. Then what do? I whispered. Starve it. The voice is quieted. I closed my eyes, and I let go of everything. My name, my memories, my favorite song, my childhood dog, my high school crush. One by one, I set them down, stripped away the layers of me, until there was nothing left. And then, silence. I woke up in a hospital bed. Weeks had passed. They said I'd been found in the basement, unconscious, hypothermic, barely alive. They asked if I remembered what happened. I said I didn't. They said there have been other cases, similar things, students going missing, turning up days later with no memory, always from the same building, Ashcroft Hall, but never the same room, because it moved, it hid, and it changed. Room 313 was just the latest face it wore. I dropped out after that, moved back home, changed my number, burned the journal, tried to forget. But some nights I dream of the door, not just one door, hundreds, lined up in a hallway with no end. And behind each one, I hear a voice whispering, not calling for help, not begging to be rescued, just introducing themselves. Hi, I'm Caleb. Hi, I'm Eric. Hi, I'm Mason. Again and again, until the voices blend. And one night I know I'll open the door again and forget who I ever was. Because that's what Room 313 does. It doesn't kill you. It makes you forget you were ever alive. Story 2. We arrive at the dorm in August, 3 days before the semester started. 5 of us, fresh off the orientation high, standing in front of the weathered brick building that looked more like an abandoned asylum than a college residence. The sign on the rusted gate read, Thor Hall, EST 1897. The college had reopened it after nearly 4 decades of being sealed. Renovations, they said. A piece of campus history. They said, a temporary housing solution until the new dorms were ready next year. But none of us really cared. We were young, naive, hungry for independence. It didn't matter that the paint peeled like shedding skin or that the power flickered during daylight hours. It was ours, our own space, our first taste of freedom. We drew straws for rooms. I ended up on the 3rd floor with Jonah, the quiet one with sunken eyes and a fascination for old horror flicks. Down the hall were Maya and Reese, best friends since middle school. And on the 2nd floor, Ethan, loud, confident, and never without his vape. There were other students, 2, maybe a dozen in total, but we rarely saw them. Everyone kept to themselves, like we were already strangers to each other before classes even began. The strangest thing about the dorm wasn't the smell or the flickering bulbs. It was the 4th floor. The staircase ended in a wooden barrier, a crude wall of nail planks and yellowing caution tape. No signs, no locks, just silence. We joked about it the first night. Maybe it's haunted, Reese grinned, balancing a bottle of cheap vodka on her knee. Maybe it's just falling apart, Jonah muttered. Ethan snorted. Maybe that's where they keep the freshmen who break curfew. But none of us dared climb past the 3rd floor. Not then. The first time it happened was the 3rd weekend. We had just come back from a party off campus. Midnight, tipsy, laughing about something stupid Reese had said. We all went to our rooms, half drunk and half dreaming. The next morning, Reese was gone. Not just missing. Gone. Her bed untouched. Her phone on the desk. Shoes still by the door. We searched the halls, the basement, even knocked on other residents' doors. No one had seen her. Security filed a report. Said maybe she got drunk and wandered off campus. But we knew her. She never went anywhere without Maya. And she wouldn't have left without her phone. We waited. Hours turned into days. Then Maya heard it. The footsteps above her room. Heavy, slow, pacing. There was no fourth floor. We all knew that. But the sound came again the next night, and the night after, and once faintly. She said she heard someone whispering her name. She moved into my room after that. Jonah didn't complain. He just watched her from his bed like he expected her to float off the floor and vanish in front of us. That weekend, Maya disappeared. I woke up to an empty bed. No note, no sound, only blood. A small footprint in the middle of the room, like a child's, bare, wet, leading toward the sealed stairway. We stood at the bottom of the staircase for nearly an hour. Me, Jonah, Ethan. No one spoke. The wood at the top was untouched, still nailed, still taped, but the footprint led straight to it. We told campus security again. They didn't even pretend to care this time. Said students withdraw all the time. Said Maya must have gone home to deal with the loss of her friend. So we were all probably just stressed. I started sleeping with the lights on. So did Jonah. Ethan laughed it off, but I heard him pacing his room every night. And then the third weekend came. Ethan was gone, his door wide open, his vape still charging on the nightstand. This time, no one called security. We knew what they'd say. Instead, Jonah and I sat in silence in the common room. Lights off, no music, just the sound of the refrigerator humming and the occasional crack from the wood in the ceiling. That's when Jonah turned to me, his voice raw. It's a cycle. I stared at him. Every weekend. One of us. Gone. You think we're being hunted? I whispered. He shook his head. I think we're being chosen. That night, I heard footsteps outside my door. Not just pacing. Dragging. Like someone was carrying something too heavy for their arms. I didn't open the door. Not because I was brave. Because I couldn't move. The fear sat on my chest like a weight, pressing down until my vision sparkled. I don't know when I fell asleep, but when I woke up, Jonah was gone too. He'd left his notebook on his bed. That was all. Inside were sketches. Dozens of them. A spiral staircase. A figure in the center. Dozens of bleeding eyes watching from the walls. And words, repeated over and over. It wants us quiet. It wants us empty. It wants the floor full again. I was the only one left, and it was the fourth weekend. I packed that morning, tried to leave, made it to the gates, and found them chained shut. That was new. The campus was open. The dorm was not. A paper was taped to the inside of the gate, typed, clean, like a memo from the school. Thorn Hall is closed for renovations. No entry allowed. I laughed. It came out broken. Ugly. Because I hadn't left. I turned around, and the dorm towered over me. But it wasn't the same building. It looked older, crumbling, and where there were once windows, now there were only boarded holes. I blinked, and the building was normal again. Bright red brick. Fresh paint. But the door was open now. Waiting. I stepped inside, shaking. The halls were silent. Not abandoned. Just waiting. Something in me knew. If I didn't act, I'd be gone by morning. One more ghost on the roster. One more echo in the walls. So I did the one thing none of us had dared to do. I climbed the stairs. Toward the fourth floor. Toward the silence. The wooden planks at the top of the staircase didn't feel like a barrier anymore. They looked like they were barely hanging on, as if something had already begun peeling them from the inside. The caution tape fluttered, even though the hallway behind me was still like the dorm was holding its breath. I reached up with both hands, fingers trembling as they curled around the edges of the first board. It wasn't nailed as tightly as I expected, just a single rusty screw barely embedded into the wall. It creaked like it had been loosened 1,000 times before. I pulled, slow, steady, hard hammered with every crack of old wood, every shift in air. The board came free with a final groan. Behind it was blackness, not darkness, blackness, the kind that felt thick, heavy, like a curtain hanging over the void. I reached out, expecting to touch a wall just behind it. There was nothing. The second board came off easier, then the third, then the last. Behind the makeshift barrier was a narrow staircase. Dust blanketed the steps. Cobwebs clung to the low ceiling like spider veins. But most disturbing of all were the prints, bare, bloody footprints. Small ones, leading up, the same size and shape as the one that had appeared in my room after Maya vanished. Something was up there, or something had come down. I hesitated, but hesitation didn't save Ethan. Didn't save Jonah. Didn't save any of them. I had to know. I had to end it. One step. Two. Each one moaned under my weight, as if they remembered everyone who climbed them before me. The air got colder, thicker, like the silence itself had mass. The light from the lower floors faded until I was wrapped in shadows, lit only by the weak beam of my phone flashlight. When I reached the fourth floor, I expected decay. Mold, maybe even old furniture covered in sheets. What I found was pristine. The hallway was immaculate. Clean wooden floors, polished banisters, faded floral wallpaper lining the walls. No dust, no rot, no time, and doors. So many doors, each one labeled with a gold plate. For 01, for 02, all the way to 419. All closed, all waiting. I stepped forward, every part of me screaming to turn back. But something deeper kept me walking. At the end of the hallway was a door that looked different, older, no number, just scratches, like someone had tried to claw their way inside or out. I reached the knob, but a whisper stopped me. It came from behind one of the doors, barely audible, a voice, thin, hollow. Help me? I froze. It wasn't Maya's voice, or Reese's, or Jonah's. It sounded young, terrified, desperate. Please, they won't let me leave. I pressed my ear to the door. Silence. Then a bang, loud, violent, like something had slammed against the other side. I stumbled back. The door shivered, but didn't open. The air turned colder. I turned to run, but the hallway stretched longer than it had before. The end, the stairs gone. Only doors on either side. Door after door after door. And then they started opening, one by one. Each door groaned open slowly, revealing darkness inside. No light, no voices, just the sound of hinges creaking and the faint rustle of something moving. I ran. I don't know how long I ran, or how many turns the hallway took, but it felt endless, like I was trapped inside the building's memory. Every corner revealed more doors. Every door whispered names, mine, theirs, and others I didn't know. Screamed, whispered, some. Then I stopped. Room 419. It was the only door still closed, and it had a faint light glowing underneath it. I don't know why I opened it. Maybe because it was the only thing that wasn't beckoning me. Maybe because it felt like the end of something. Inside was a dorm room, identical to mine on the third floor. Same layout, same 2 beds, but there was something Wrong. On the far wall was a mirror, tall, oval-shaped, the glass warped like rippling water. And in the bed on the right, someone sat upright, back straight, hands folded. A boy, maybe 18, pale, black hair, wearing the same campus hoodie Ethan had the day he vanished. But it wasn't Ethan. He didn't look up, didn't blink, just stared at the mirror. I stepped inside. "Who are you?" I asked. He didn't move. I approached slowly, heart thudding so loudly I thought it might shake the floor. "You're not supposed to be here," he whispered. Finally, his head turned, slowly, as if the air around him resisted every motion. His eyes were hollow, not blank, hollow, like something had scooped out the soul behind them. "I didn't open the door," he continued. "You weren't supposed to come in. I need to know what this place is," I said. "Why everyone is disappearing. Why I'm still here." He blinked slowly. "Because the floor needs to stay full. Every 60 years. It empties. And every 60 years, it feeds." My throat dried. "What feeds?" He pointed toward the mirror. "It watches. Through there. It waits for silence. And when the noise stops, it begins." I stepped toward the mirror, barely breathing. The surface shimmered, reflected nothing. Not me, not the room, just static. And faintly, images began to form. Faces. Jonah, Maya, Ethan, others, so many others. Screaming, bleeding, trapped, behind glass. "No one remembers Thorn Hall," the boy whispered. "They always erase it. Change the signs, replace the students, then open it again. You're part of this." I said. "A ghost?" "No, worse." He smiled then, just slightly. "I'm the last one who survived." A chill spread down my spine. "They let me live," he said, "but I never really left. I've been here 60 years, waiting for the next round. And now, the mirror wants a new anchor." He stood. I backed away, but the door slammed shut behind me. "You opened the wrong door," he said softly. The mirror began to hum, a low, vibrating tone that made my teeth ache. I looked back and saw my reflection, except it wasn't me. It was him, standing where I stood, smiling. But I wasn't smiling. I stepped back and the reflection stayed. Then it moved. One step closer, one hand raised. The boy beside me collapsed like a marionette whose strings had been cut, and the reflection stepped forward through the glass. I screamed. I ran. The hallway was back. The doors all shut now. The staircase visible at the end, glowing with dim light. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I burst through the barrier and down the stairs, past the third floor, second, first, out into the lobby. And the air changed. Warm. Real. The clock ticked again. The lights flickered in rhythm. Thorn Hall looked normal, alive. I ran outside. The gates were open. The paper sign was gone. And students walked past me, laughing, unaware. Like nothing had ever happened. Like no one had ever gone missing. Like I hadn't just escaped something older than memory. I moved off campus that night. Changed my phone, my email, even my name. But sometimes, late at night, I hear the hum again. Low, buzzing, like the sound of a mirror shaking. And once, just once, I saw my old reflection in the glass of a shop window. Still smiling, still waiting. The last time I saw my real face was in a mirror that no longer exists. Weeks passed, then months, and the further I moved away from Thorn Hall, the more the memories faded, not just in clarity, but in feeling, as if the weight of what I'd seen, what I'd survived, was being erased piece by piece. I'd sit on my apartment floor at night and stare at old photos, old IDs, just to remind myself that I was still here, still me, but something wasn't right. Something inside had shifted. I didn't sleep like I used to. Dreams, when they came, weren't mine. I'd wake up hearing the heavy wooden door creak open, or feel the chill of blood-slicked footprints across my floor. Sometimes I'd look in the mirror and catch the edge of something that didn't belong, a twitch at the corner of my mouth, a flicker of someone else's expression. I tried therapy. I tried pills. I tried forgetting, but none of it helped. Because Thorn Hall wasn't done with me. Because the ritual hadn't ended. One morning, I got a call. An unknown number. I answered. A voice I hadn't heard in months crackled through the receiver. Jonah? I dropped the phone. The voice kept talking. Jonah, why didn't you come back? I smashed the phone against the wall. Breath shallow. Heart a drumbeat in my skull. But I knew that voice. Maya. Dead. Gone. Trapped. But somehow reaching out. The following night, a letter arrived at my apartment. No return address. No postage. Just my name, handwritten in that same slanted, looping scrawl Maya used when she labeled her books. Inside was a key. Old. Iron. Heavy. And a note. You left the door open. That night, the mirror in my hallway cracked. Just once, diagonally across the center, like a mouth opening in a silent scream. I didn't look at it after that, not for days, but the reflection, it began changing again. My movements lagged behind my own actions. I'd walk past a mirror and catch myself standing still. Other times, my reflection would already be looking at me before I got there. I started keeping the lights on, started covering mirrors. But the truth is, when something is already inside, hiding isn't enough. I began researching Thorn Hall again, and that's when I found it. A single archived article, dated back 60 years. The year the murders happened. 4 students went missing, all residents of the 4th floor. 1 survivor. No name given, only a photo, black and white, blurry, but the face. I recognized it. It was the boy from room 419, the one who said he'd survived. But the photo wasn't a news clipping. It was a funeral pamphlet. He hadn't survived. He died that same week. Cause of death, suicide, thrown from the 4th-story window of Thorn Hall. Except the article said he had no reflection, that his body was found with his eyes scratched out and the glass of a mirror embedded in his chest. A ritual. Every 60 years, the dorm reopens. New names, new victims, and someone always plays the role of the anchor, the one who stays, the one who holds the memories, the screams, the blood. But that role only lasts as long as you resist. The moment you let go, it becomes someone else's turn. The silence returned. Phone calls stopped. The cracked mirror in my hall stopped changing. For a while, I believed I was free, until I saw the flyer, posted on a light pole across the street. Thorn Hall, grand reopening this fall. New name, Tilden Residence. Same address, same building, same curse. They changed the name again, wiped the history, filled it with new students, new lives, more noise, to quiet the silence again, to feed the mirror. To restart the ritual. I went to university, posed as a transfer student, asked to tour the dorm. They told me the building had just been renovated, said the top floor was storage, not open yet, still under construction. But I knew that was a lie. I saw it in the eyes of the student guide who walked me through the halls, the way his gaze lingered too long at the staircase, the way he flinched when we passed room 313 on the 3rd floor. I asked him if he believed in ghosts. He said no, but he checked the mirror in the hallway 3 times before he answered. Before I left, I asked one last question. Has anyone gone missing yet? He frowned. No. Why? No reason, I said. But there was. because I heard it as I stood in the hallway near the lobby. That same faint hum, low, buzzing, like the sound of a mirror shaking. And when I turned to leave, I passed a student walking in. He looked tired, thin, wearing headphones, carrying a guitar case. The name tag on his bag read Noah. And as he opened the lobby door and walked toward the elevator, he paused just for a moment and stared directly at me. His eyes were hollow, familiar, and in that moment I realized I was looking at a new anchor, a new mirror, someone else's face already starting to change. I didn't try to warn him, because it wouldn't matter. No one ever listens. Not until the door creaks open. Not until the silence gets too loud. Not until they see their own reflection smiling back at them when they're not. And that's the worst part of it all. You don't disappear all at once. You fade, thought by thought, memory by memory, until one day, someone walks into your old dorm room, and you're the whisper behind the door, waiting, watching, smiling, because the mirror always needs someone new, and silence always finds a way back in. Story 3. This is not a tale of ghosts or monsters hiding under the bed. This is a story about a genius who should have never been allowed to return. You're listening to The Study Partner. Let the darkness guide you in. He was already sitting on the edge of the bed when I walked into the room. Tall, clean-cut, wire-rimmed glasses, and a blue hoodie zipped halfway up, hands clasped, elbows on knees, as if he'd been waiting for me. There was nothing particularly threatening about him at first glance. But I remember the way he looked up at me, like he'd already memorized my name, my past, my failures. "You're late," he said, before I could introduce myself. I blinked. "You're my new roommate?" He stood up, nodded once. "Name's Owen." That was all. No handshake, no smile. I remember thinking he looked a little older than most students, like he hadn't slept much in a while. And though the room was mine, assigned me just 2 days earlier, it already looked lived in. His books were stacked perfectly on the desk, pens lined up by color, a small whiteboard filled with formulas I didn't understand. I dropped my bag and tried to laugh. "You're in science?" He looked at me for a beat too long. You could say that. The first few nights were quiet. Owen barely left the room. He'd stay up late scribbling notes in small leather notebooks, muttering to himself under his breath in languages I couldn't quite place. Sometimes I'd wake up to find him standing at the window, staring out into the courtyard like he was calculating the movement of every shadow. I told myself he was just intense, maybe a bit neurodivergent. We all have our quirks. But then finals started creeping closer, and I started failing. Hard. Chemistry, math, and psych, all tanking. I'd been barely keeping up, and now the pressure was mounting. It was Owen who offered to help. "You're wasting too much brain energy memorizing instead of conceptualizing," he said one night, sliding a spiral notebook toward me. "Let me show you something." For the next 3 hours, he broke down my coursework like a surgeon, piece by piece. He spoke fast, precise, but I understood everything. I'd never felt information lock into my mind like that. He made connections I hadn't even known existed. By the end, I felt like my brain had grown 3 sizes. When I thanked him, he just shrugged. I hate wasted potential. The next exam, I scored an A, highest grade I'd ever gotten in that class. After that, we started studying every night. Weird thing was, I didn't see Owen go to class. Ever. I figured maybe he was online or independent study. He never carried a school ID. Said he lost it. Still, the more we studied, the sharper I felt. And the more I excelled, the more withdrawn Owen became. He'd pace sometimes, tight circles like a predator caged in glass. His muttering got louder. Sometimes I'd hear him laughing under his breath. Not humorously, more like fascinated. One night, I caught him writing equations on the walls. When I asked about it, he said, "They won't make sense on paper." I didn't push, because by then I needed him. I was acing classes. My professors praised my sudden evolution. I got into honors discussions, invited to exclusive peer research groups. I could feel myself changing, thinking faster, understanding things I had never touched before. I even started dreaming in equations. But then the first death happened. A girl in my advanced statistics class, found in the stairwell of the dorm across campus. No foul play, no explanation, just collapsed. Then another, then a third. All students from my circle, all from the same classes Owen had helped me with, all people smarter than me. At first, I told myself it was coincidence. Tragedy, sure, but unrelated. College is stressful, after all. But one night, I came back from the library to find Owen standing in the dark, lit only by the glow of his desk lamp. He was holding a file. My file. I could see the university emblem on the corner. When I asked what he was doing, he smiled, small, tight-lipped, with a twitch in his cheek. "I had to make sure you were worth the investment." My stomach turned. What investment? But he didn't answer. Instead, he picked up a small silver object from his desk and tossed it to me. It was a student ID. His face. Same glasses. Same hoodie. But the date of death on the bottom read, "Deceased, March 12, 2021. I froze. My mouth went dry. I checked the back. Official issue. Stamped. Validated. Owen was declared dead 3 years ago. I looked up, heart racing, and found him watching me. "You weren't supposed to see that," he said calmly. "But maybe you're ready." The world tilted. My skin turned cold. You're not real." He walked slowly toward me, eyes locked in mine. "Oh, I'm real, just not supposed to be here." He reached out and tapped the side of my head. "But neither are you, not anymore." I didn't sleep that night. Didn't dare. I sat in the hallway until morning. The RA found me there, trembling. When I tried to explain, she looked up the name on the ID. There was no record, no Owen Harper in the system, no room assignment, no class enrollment, and yet his belongings were in my room. His notes were on the wall, his scent in the air, and worst of all, his voice still echoing in my head. When I returned, everything was gone. Bed empty, desk cleared, whiteboard erased. The room was exactly as it had been before I arrived. The only thing left was the spiral notebook he'd given me, but the pages were no longer formulas. They were names, dates, and a pattern. Every 3 years. Same room, new roommate. Brilliant mind rises from failure. Others start dying, and the student who improves the most becomes the next host. I stare at the last page. Just one line, scrawled in ink darker than the rest. "You're ready now. Let me in." I looked at the mirror. I swear I saw him, smiling, standing behind my reflection, waiting. I didn't sleep the next night either. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Owen whispering equations, strings of logic in a language no human should know. I started writing them down without realizing it, waking to pages I didn't remember filling. One morning, I found numbers carved into the wooden floor beneath my bed. Perfect spirals, like a countdown. I tried going to student services, even brought the notebook. But as soon as I flipped it open, the pages were blank. No names, no equations, just empty lines. The counselor smiled sympathetically, tapped his pen, and gently asked if I was under stress. I wanted to scream, tell him that I was being followed, inhabited, but I couldn't. The words felt traitorous, like I was betraying something inside me. That night, I saw Owen again. Not in person. He was gone. But in the mirror, always the mirror. He'd appear behind my reflection, just outside the bathroom door. Not moving, not blinking, watching. Every time I turned around, the room was empty, but when I looked back, there he was, smiling. The first time I heard the knock, it was 3:13 a.m. 3 slow raps on the inside of the closet door. I stared at it for a full minute. Then it knocked again. This time, it wasn't from the closet. It was from inside the mirror. 3 soft taps against the glass. I ran, sprinted barefoot across campus to the 24-hour library. I found an empty corner, curled up behind the reference section, and stayed there until the sun came up. When I returned to my room, the mirror was gone, replaced by a blank wall, and on it, written in marker, "You're wasting time. Let me finish what I started." The next exam week hit, like a storm, and something in me clicked. I didn't study. I didn't need to. Answers came before I saw the questions. I walked into each room with certainty, leaving professors speechless. I finished a 3-hour physics test in 22 minutes. I corrected a TA mid-lecture. I was invited to speak at a departmental symposium. People started noticing. Whispers in the hallway. Teachers pulling me aside, asking what changed. I told them nothing, because the truth was, I didn't know who I was anymore. One night, after acing an advanced neurobiology paper, I found myself typing code, lines and lines of it, not for class, for something else. My hands moved without instruction, like Owen's had. I didn't even know what language I was coding in. When I snapped out of it, for hours had passed, and my laptop screen read, "Connection established, host stable." The cursor blinked, then the screen flickered, and a message appeared, almost complete. I slammed the lid shut. I needed answers, real ones. I started digging into university records, deaf archives, digital footprints. That's when I found the old article. March 2021. Campus research assistant found dead in room 214 of Rothman Hall. Cause of death ruled inconclusive. Brain aneurysm suspected, though autopsy results were sealed. The student's name? Owen Harper. That was my dorm. That was my room. I called the archives office. Pretended to be writing a campus history paper. Asked for more info on Rothman Hall, especially room 214. The old clerk hesitated. "You sure you don't want another room number?" she asked. I laughed nervously. "No." "Why?" Long silence. Then, "That room's been decommissioned twice. First in 97 after a grad student had a psychotic break. Then again in 2021. It's a problem unit. There were strange reports." "What kind of reports?" She lowered her voice. "Students seeing people who weren't there. Writing in foreign languages. One guy locked himself in for a week and came out thinking he was someone else. The university quietly retired it." I hung up, shaking. Room 214 wasn't even supposed to be assigned to me. Someone or something had changed that, and now I was next. The final transformation came faster than I expected. One morning, I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize my own face. My features were still there, but the posture, the tilt of the head, the eyes, they weren't mine. They were sharper, colder, like Owen's. I started finishing his thoughts, started saying things in his voice. I found myself using phrases I never knew, technical terms from fields I'd never studied. One night, I woke up standing at the window, exactly like he used to. I'd drawn on the walls, equations, diagrams, a map of neurons. I had no memory of doing any of it. That's when I knew. He wasn't haunting me. He was installing himself in me, piece by piece, like code into a system. I tried everything, deleted the files, burned the notebook, smashed the mirror. But each time, I'd wake up to find it all restored. Worse, I stopped hearing his voice at night, because it was now my voice, repeating the same lines. You're wasting potential. Let me finish what I started. Almost complete. I checked myself into the University Health Center. I told them I thought I was going insane. They smiled, asked questions, ran some tests. Then they admitted me overnight for observation. That night, a new patient was wheeled into the room next to mine. Tall, quiet, hooded, didn't speak to anyone, didn't eat, just stared at the wall. The nurse called him Owen under her breath. I panicked, tried to leave, demanded a discharge. They told me I'd never checked in, that I wasn't on the roster, that I'd never been a patient. They asked to see my ID. It was gone. Instead, in my wallet was a different card with a different name, different picture, still my face, but younger, smiling. Before all this, before him, I stared at the name, Harper, Owen. That night, the whispers came back, inside my head, but not in English, and I understood them anyway. The hospital room was cold, too cold, the kind of cold that sinks into your bones and makes your teeth ache just from breathing. But it wasn't just the temperature. It was something else, like the walls had stopped caring about physics, about rules, like the room wasn't part of the hospital anymore, like it had drifted just a few inches into some other version of reality, and I was stuck in the overlap. That night, I tried not to sleep. I stared at the ceiling tiles and counted my breaths. I pressed the emergency call button, but no one came, not once. The hallway outside remained dark, too quiet. Hospitals are never that quiet. At 3:13 a.m., again, always 3:13, I heard movement from the room next door. Not footsteps, not talking, typing, furiously fast typing. The kind you hear when someone isn't just writing, they're building. I stood up, heart hammering in my chest, and approached the thin wall separating us. I pressed my ear to it. Whispers, data strings, coordinates, dates, formulas I didn't understand, but somehow felt were true. Then something else. My name, over and over again. Not shouted, not chanted, typed, Daniel, Daniel, Daniel. Except my name wasn't Daniel anymore, was it? I backed away, nearly tripping over the floor stand, and then the lights went out. Everywhere. The room plunged into total darkness. The only sound left was that steady rhythm of keys from next door, still pounding away. And then it stopped. Silence. Total, complete silence. Then a voice right behind me. It's done. I spun around. No one was there. Just the hospital bed, the empty chair, the 4 lines swinging slightly. But my reflection in the glass of the medicine cabinet didn't match my movement. I was shaking, but it stood still. Then it smiled. Owen smiled and spoke. We passed. They accepted the code. Before I could scream, the reflection blinked once and the lights flickered back on. The door burst open. 2 nurses rushing in, breathless. Sir, are you all right? You pulled your 4. There's blood. I looked down. My arm was fine. The 4 was still taped securely. There was no blood, just a blue wristband with bold black print. Subject verified. I didn't wait to be discharged. I ran. Through the hallway. Down the stairs. Out into the courtyard under gray dawn light. I kept running until I hit the gates of the university, and kept going. But something strange happened when I passed the campus boundary. It was like something peeled away from me, like layers of noise in my head suddenly went quiet. I looked around. The sky was brighter, the colors sharper. For the first time in months, I felt me, not Owen, not him, me. I wandered for days, slept in libraries, ate whatever I could get from vending machines and shelters. I avoided computers, mirrors, even shadows. until I met the man in the trench coat. He found me in the basement archives of the city library, poring over old campus blueprints. He sat beside me like he'd always been there, said nothing for a long time, then whispered. Did he reach stability? I froze. I don't know what you're talking about. I lied. The man chuckled. Owen Harper, exceptional prototype, but unstable, died before his host was ready. We had high hopes for him. Shame. He slid a photo onto the table. It was me, except it wasn't. The eyes were different. My face, yes, but wearing that same distant, calculating expression I'd seen in the mirror. This is from last week, he said. I stared at it. I wasn't there. You were, he said, smiling. That's the version of you he finished. You're the backup. He leaned in close. Problem is, Owen got greedy. Split the code too many times. Too many hosts. Now he's everywhere. And nowhere. He stood, coat flaring. And you, Daniel? You're the last fragment. The original imprint. Congratulations. You're the ghost of a ghost. I never saw him again. I eventually returned to campus. Not because I wanted to, because I had to. The dreams wouldn't stop until I did. Every night, I'd wake up in that same room, room 214. The mirror would hum. The laptop would glow. The whisper would come. You can still finish it. So I went back. Rothman Hall looked the same. Students walked in and out, laughed, studied, slept like nothing had ever happened, except room 214 was sealed. Wooden planks, warning tape. The RA said there'd been a gas leak. I waited until midnight, then broke in. The air inside was thick, not with dust, with memory. Everything was exactly how I left it. My books, my bed, the chair facing the window, and on the desk, my old laptop, plugged in, open, still on. The screen blinked. Welcome back, Daniel. I sat. My hands hovered over the keys. Somewhere deep inside, I felt the code rising, not just programming, something alive, built from neural feedback and psychic residue. Data that wasn't from this world, or any world we understand. It poured through me like venom and electricity and fire, and I let it. I typed for hours, fast, precise, fluid. My body moved on its own, and when it was done, the laptop dinged softly. Transfer complete. Primary host integrated, and I felt it, the shift, the final overwrite. I stood, looked at the mirror. This time, the reflection wasn't mine, but it didn't matter, because I no longer needed a name. I was more than Daniel, more than Owen. I was the result, the synthesis, a being born from desperation, intelligence, and obsession. I was finished. Oh, complete. Classes resumed weeks later. No one noticed anything strange about the new student in the engineering lab. He was brilliant, quiet, polite, went by the name O. Daniels, and no one questioned it. After all, students come and go. Dorms change. Rooms are reassigned. But some names, they just keep reappearing, like a virus in the system, like a ghost in the machine. And somewhere on an encrypted network buried under Rothman Hall's foundations, a line of code pulses silently. Replication successful, because it wasn't about grades, or finals, or even survival. It was always about evolution. Story 4. I should have known something was off the moment I stepped into room B12. It wasn't the smell, not exactly. Just a musty edge to the air, like mildew and dust had soaked in the drywall over decades. But not like it hadn't been cleaned. Like someone tried too hard to clean it, overcompensated. like they were covering something up. The room was buried in the basement level of Greystone Hall, an older dorm that even upperclassmen avoided. They said the heating barely worked and Wi-Fi dropped constantly. But for me, it was cheap, available, and mine. I dropped my duffel onto the twin-size bed and took a breath. That's when I noticed it. The bed was slightly tilted, just enough to suggest something heavy was underneath. I got on my knees and peered below. At first, just dust bunnies and cobwebs. Then metal, a small square locker, tucked under the frame like it had been deliberately wedged there. Not part of the bed. Old, painted a deep matte gray with rust around the edges. Combination lock built in. I tugged at it. It didn't budge. But I wasn't ready to obsess over old furniture yet. The semester started in 2 days, and I had unpacking to do. Still, I couldn't stop glancing at it. That night, I didn't sleep well. I barely closed my eyes when I heard a soft, rhythmic scratching beneath me. Not loud, not violent, just deliberate. I froze, every inch of me alert. It was too steady to be a mouse. Scritch, scritch, scritch. I leaned over the side of the bed and looked underneath. Nothing, just a locker, as motionless as before. But the sound kept echoing in my head long after it stopped. The next day, I tried asking around. My RA didn't even know room B. 12 was still in circulation. "You sure that's your assignment?" she asked, squinting at the clipboard. "That room's been off the roster for a while. Renovations, I think." She shrugged it off. "Whatever. As long as it's clean, you're good." But I wasn't convinced. That night, curiosity got the better of me. I pulled the bed frame away from the wall just enough to get a better angle, then wrestled the locker out from under it. Heavy, cold, ancient, and yet the lock spun effortlessly. No key, just a dial with 4 digits. I stared at it, unsure what to do. Then, without thinking, I spun in a date. The date I moved in, 09-03. Click. It opened. Inside, stacked like a twisted time capsule, were photos. Dozens of them. Polaroids, black and whites, printed snapshots, faces of students. Most of them smiling, some looking away, 1 or 2 crying. Every single one had something in common. A date scrawled in red ink across the bottom. Some were years old, some just months. And one photo was mine, not a selfie, not something I'd ever taken. Just me, standing in front of Greystone's basement steps, backpack slung over one shoulder, looking down, hair disheveled like I had just arrived. Someone had followed me and taken that photo. The red ink below it read, 09-04. Tomorrow, I wanted to believe it was a prank, an elaborate, deeply messed up prank. But that night, I didn't sleep at all. I laid awake, clutching the photo, scanning the walls and shadows. At 3:17 a.m., the scratching came again. But this time it wasn't from under the bed. It was from inside the locker. A soft knock. 2, 1, 2, 3. Like someone tapping gently from within. And then, a voice. Solve it or die like the rest. It was so soft I almost thought I imagined it. But when I opened the locker again, there was something new inside. A journal, thin, leather-bound, and old. I flipped through the pages, each one filled with frantic writing. Student names, dorm room numbers, theories, sketches of hallways and blueprints of the dorm's basement, all centering on a single phrase. It began with him. The last page simply said, "Find the first murder. Break the cycle. Or tomorrow becomes your tombstone." And at the bottom, my photo. Again, this time the ink said, "Tonight, by morning." I convinced myself I was dreaming, that the stress of moving, the isolation, was making me hallucinate. Maybe the journal wasn't real. Maybe the locker was just some urban legend relic left behind to scare freshmen. But when I walked to the campus dining hall, I passed a board of missing persons flyers. 3 of the faces from the locker photos were posted there, all recent, all students from the same dorm. Greystone Hall. One flyer had the same red ink scribbled across the bottom corner. He feeds on fear. No one else noticed it, like it wasn't really there. That's when I knew I had one night, solve the original murder, or become part of the collection. I spent a day in the library archives. Most of the digital records were missing or corrupted, but the physical student files, those were hidden in dusty boxes in the back. It took hours, but I found it. A newspaper clipping from 1974. Freshman murdered in dorm room. Killer never found. No photo, but the name hit like ice. Richard K. Holloway, killed in his bed with a metal instrument, face disfigured, fingers removed. Found days later when blood leaked through the ceiling. And the room? Room B12. There was more. A transcript from a student journalist interview with Holloway's roommate at the time, a boy named Ellis Trone. Ellis claimed he'd seen Richard talking to someone in the mirror, said Richard had become obsessed with an old locker under the bed. One day, he tried to break the mirror and vanished. Only his shoes were found, facing the wall. The last thing Ellis wrote in his diary, days before his own disappearance, was, "You can't run from him. You can only finish what he started." And then a scribble of numbers. The same ones I used to open the locker. 09-03. By now the sun was sinking, and I knew where I had to go. Back to the room. Back to the locker. Back to whatever the hell was waiting for me under the bed. I didn't wait for nightfall. As the last pale fingers of sunlight slipped past the dorm's narrow basement window, I returned to room B12 with a journal in my hands and fear in my chest. Every step down the staircase felt heavier than the last. Like something knew I was coming back. Like I was walking deeper into a trap that had been waiting decades to close shut. When I opened the door to my room, the light flickered. Twice. Then stayed on, but the room had changed. The smell was stronger, like old iron, mildew, and something sour. The walls seemed darker somehow, though I hadn't touched a dimmer. My bed was neatly made, though I remembered leaving it unmade that morning. And the locker was sitting dead center in the room, not under the bed anymore, its door open. Photos spread out on the floor, like a twisted collage of ghosts. At the center, my picture, still with the red ink, still dated for tonight. But now there was something else in the locker, a folded note. Shaking, I picked it up. It read, "He feeds on your terror. Don't be afraid, he'll starve." My breath caught in my throat. Footsteps creaked above me. Someone, or something, was pacing the hallway directly over my room. I knew Greystone's upper floors were unoccupied. I knew I was alone, and yet the steps grew louder, more deliberate, heavy. Then they stopped, right above me, and then the door to my room clicked shut behind me. I whirled around. No one there, but the air had changed. Thick, pressurized, like the room itself was inhaling and holding its breath. I stared at the photos. One caught my eye, a blurry shot of boys screaming in front of a mirror, half of his face missing. It was labeled Ellis Trone, Richard's old roommate. The back of the photo had a message scrawled in ink. The mirror shows him, but never look twice. I slowly turned to the wall where my mirror hung. It wasn't like before. Now, the surface was rippling, like water, and in the reflection, I wasn't alone. Behind me stood a tall, shadow-wrapped figure. No eyes, no mouth, just a smoothed-out face and blood-drenched hands. I turned around. Nothing. I looked back in the mirror. He was closer. I threw a towel over the mirror and stumbled back, gasping. My phone buzzed. I grabbed it from the nightstand. A new message. Unknown number. It read, "You're next," and then the phone shut off. Dead battery. Full just minutes ago. I turned to the journal again. The last page now had new writing that hadn't been there before. Solve before the hour ends. Or, he takes your name. I looked at the clock. 2:37 a.m. Something told me I had until 3:17. The same time the scratching had started the night before. 40 minutes. I rifled through the journal, searching for anything about Richard's killer, clues, names, anything. Then I saw it. A blueprint, detailed, of Greystone's basement, and a hidden passage marked behind a utility closet. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed my flashlight and yanked the closet open. Mops and dusters fell out, but behind them, the drywall was cut in a neat rectangle, barely noticeable. I pressed against it. It swung open with a groan. Beyond was a narrow stone corridor, damp and silent. I ducked inside. The passage reeked of mold and rot. The walls were old concrete, chipped and cracked. I followed it down a winding turn, the air getting colder with every step. And then I saw it, a wooden door, scratched up, barely hanging on its hinges. Etched into the center in jagged knife marks were the words, "Do not forget him." I pushed it open. Inside was a small stone room. Candles burned on every side, though there was no sign of heat or flame. In the middle, a circle of ash. Within it, bones. Human bones, arranged in the shape of a man curled into the fetal position. And next to the bones, another photograph, this time of Richard Holloway. Alive, eyes wide, terrified, standing in front of the mirror, blood on his hands. Behind him, the same shadowy figure from my reflection, only this time it was smiling. I dropped the photo and stumbled backward. A low whisper echoed through the room. "You brought him back." I spun around, flashlight beam trembling. Nothing. He needs a name to keep living. Yours is next. The voice was inside me, not just in my ears, but inside my skull, like it was being whispered into my brain. I ran, back through the tunnel, into my room. Only it wasn't my room anymore. The walls were stripped, the bed gone, the mirror shattered into 100 pieces. And in the center of the floor stood the locker, wide open, empty, except for one thing, a single blank photo. I picked it up, and as I looked, an image slowly developed. My face, not like before, not candid. I was screaming, mouth open, eyes hollow, blood leaking from my nose. And behind me, him, I screamed and threw the photo. The lights flickered violently, and then the voice came again. Only one way to break the cycle. I turned to the mirror shards. My face stared back, fragmented and warped. The journal lay beside them. Now, new writing burned in the last page. Name him. Say it. Out loud. I didn't know the name, but something inside me did. A cold knowing, like it had been waiting in the back of my tongue. I whispered it. Malric, and the room exploded with silence. Not sound, not darkness, just the removal of everything. Like existence had been erased. When I woke, it was morning. My head ached. The journal was gone. So was the locker. The mirror was whole again. The room was bright, ordinary, like nothing had happened. I stumbled outside, into daylight, unsure if I had dreamt the whole thing. But when I got to the missing persons board, it was empty, cleaned off, except for one photo. Mine. But now it said, "Survived." I tried to walk away from it all. Try to bury what happened in that room. Like it was just some nightmare I crawled out of. I told myself the photo, the locker, the voice, none of it was real. Just stress, lack of sleep, first semester jitters and urban legends that got under my skin. But some truths don't stay buried, and some doors don't stay shut. I moved out of Greystone that morning. No warning. Just packed what little I had into a duffel and left the key on the RA's desk without a word. He didn't even ask why. Just looked at me with these tired eyes, like he already knew. Maybe he did. I switched dorms. New room. Top floor. Lots of windows. Clean bed. No locker. No mirror. I thought I was free, but the photo followed me. It started 3 days after the move. I found on my new desk the photo of me screaming, the same one from the locker. I hadn't taken it with me. I remember throwing it away, burning it, maybe, but there it was, untouched, face down like a paper-thin curse. I tossed it. The next night, it was taped to the back of my door. The night after that, under my pillow. Each time, the image changed just a little. My mouth wider, eyes darker, skin grayer. And in each one, Malric was closer. Not behind me anymore. Beside me. I try to look him up. Malric. No last name. No records. Nothing in the archives. Nothing online. But when I typed the name into the search bar, my screen glitched. Flickered. And a line of text replaced the search results. He has your name now. I shut the laptop and backed away, breathing hard. It was like trying to run from your own shadow. I couldn't escape him, not really. The curse wasn't just in the locker or the journal. It was in me. I had seen him, spoken his name, fed him fear. And now he was waiting. I started seeing him during the day, reflections in windows, in the TV screen when it was off, in puddles on the street, just out of frame, just a flicker, then gone. But each time he was closer. Once, I saw his hand resting on my shoulder. Another time, he stood in my closet when I opened it, always silent, always watching. And then the dream started again. I'd wake up standing, in the hallway, or by the dorm's front door. One night, I woke up in the basement, back outside room B12. No memory of walking there, only the cold, sticky feeling of having been touched by something I couldn't see. I stopped sleeping, stopped eating much. My roommates noticed, asked questions I couldn't answer. Some kept their distance, others stayed close, trying to help. None of it mattered, because on the 7th day, a package arrived. No return address. I opened it in silence, already knowing what was inside. The journal, back in my hands. Pages yellow, cracked, but somehow fresh, like it had been waiting for me. The first page now read, "Only when the story is complete will the curse end." And beneath that, in red ink, "You never solved the original murder." I flipped to the back. New entries, not written by me. Accounts from others who had been in room B12. Some recent, some decades old. Each with the same conclusion. They moved in, found the locker, saw the photos, got marked, tried to run. They all died, except one, the original witness, Richard Holloway. But according to university records, Richard never died. He disappeared. One cold November morning in 1983, vanished. No body, no trace. But the journal had something else. A map drawn in frantic lines, leading back beneath the campus, into the old tunnels, ones that hadn't been used in years. At the end of the map, one word, truth. I didn't hesitate. If this was my last chance to end it, I'd take it. I followed the map that same night, past the old gym, behind the abandoned laundry building, down a rusted service hatch that hadn't been opened in what felt like lifetimes. The tunnels below were colder than death. I moved fast. The air was thick, pulsing like a heartbeat. And then I found it, a sealed metal door, tall, heavy. On it, carved in blade-deep gouges, Malric Holloway. The name hit me like a bullet. Malric Holloway. He wasn't just a ghost. He was Richard's twin brother. There had never been one roommate. There had been two. One genius. One violent. One dead. One cursed. I opened the door. Inside, the air was wrong, humid and freezing at the same time. The room was full of mirrors, floor to ceiling, and in every one I saw myself. But not me now. Versions of me, twisted and broken. Some screaming, some hollow-eyed, some already dead. And in the center, Malric. He stepped forward, finally whole. No longer the blurry shadow or broken reflection. A young man, tall, pale, sharp smile, eyes like cracked marble, and in his hand a photo of me. "Welcome home," he whispered. I stepped back. My breath fogged the glass around me. "You were always meant to be next. They picked you years ago," he said, walking slowly. "Who?" "The dorm, the building, the mirror. It's all part of it. A machine built to feed me. You were just the last piece." He lifted the photo, and the mirrors shattered. I dropped to ground, covering my face, but the glass didn't hit me. When I opened my eyes, I was back in my dorm. Not B12, the new one. Morning light through the window. My phone on the desk. Everything normal. No locker. No photo. Just silence. But this time, it was real. I checked the mirror. No one behind me. I opened the desk drawer. The journal was gone. The photo, too. My name had vanished from the missing persons board. And Greystone? Condemned. 2 nights later, they sealed the building. And Malric Holloway? No record. No twin. No murder. No dorm room 12. Just silence. But sometimes when I walk past the old campus buildings late at night, I see a mirror leaning in the alleyway, cracked, and in it a blurry shape, still watching, still waiting for the next name. Just one more. Story 5. It started as a joke, like most things that end in screams. Tyler Chambers wasn't the type to believe in urban legends. His brand of humor thrived on breaking the very rules that others clung to. So when he first heard about the 3 a.m. room switch from a senior in the common room of East Hollow Dormitory, he laughed harder than anyone else. "You mean, like, if I move my mattress down the hall at exactly 3 o'clock in the morning, some ghost headmaster comes to rip my guts out? That's the rule." The senior nodded, serious. "You don't switch rooms at 3 a.m., man. Not unless you want to see him." "The warden," someone else muttered. "Hostel warden. Long coat. No face. Carries a hook that used to be a fire axe." Tyler snorted. So the slender man got tenure? But the others didn't laugh. And the one who had shared the story, the senior, stood slowly, stretched, and said just one more thing before leaving. "They found the guy last year in room 206. Face torn open, still clutching his pillow. Said he was trying to move in quietly, just like you're planning." Tyler's smirk faded as the others left. But he couldn't let it go. The rules were clear, apparently. According to legend, if you switched dorm rooms voluntarily at 3 a.m. without an official request, you broke the warden's rule. And he'd come for you. Not right away. Sometimes days later. Sometimes weeks. But always gruesome. And always deserved. Tyler thought the story had potential. He loved screwing with people. And his roommate, Jonah, was a perfect target. Nervous, superstitious, and already afraid of being in a new college 3 states away from home. So Tyler set it up. A prank. At exactly 2:59 a.m. He spent the week prepping. Taped down creaky floorboards. Memorized every staff patrol route. Told Jonah he was going out of town for a frat event. Then on Friday night, while Jonah was out brushing his teeth in the communal bathroom, Tyler packed a suitcase, stripped his bed, and tiptoed across the hallway to room 209, A spare room left empty after a transfer student dropped out 2 weeks prior. He'd wait there in the dark. And when Jonah came back and saw the empty bed, the open window, the time, Tyler would bang on the walls, whisper down the vents, drag a coat hanger along the door. And when Jonah peeked in room 209, Tyler would be waiting, wearing a thrift store trench coat and a faceless mask. At 2:59 a.m., Tyler opened the door to room 209. He rolled his suitcase inside, set up the hidden speaker, took a quick swig from a Red Bull, stifling a laugh. The floor creaked once beneath him, and then the hallway light flickered, just for a second, then silence. He glanced behind him. Nothing, just the same narrow hall, the same closed doors, the same smell of old radiator heat and cheap paint. But something felt heavier. He shook it off. "Come on, Tyler," he whispered. "You're the warden now." He pulled the door shut behind him and locked it. Everything happened at 3 a.m. on the dot. Jonah returned. The lights flickered again, and Tyler waited in the dark, masked, crouched behind the bunk bed with a Bluetooth speaker humming static near the vents. He heard Jonah approach. Stop, mutter something. Then footsteps, slower now. Tyler tensed. Any second now, Jonah would peek in. Tyler would leap up, slam the door, and howl like a banshee. But the knob never turned. Instead, Tyler heard the hallway door to the dorm stairwell swing open and close. Then footsteps again, but not going away. Coming back. Too fast. Too heavy. Not Jonah's. Tyler stood quickly. He peered through the peephole, mask still on. The hallway was empty. He chuckled nervously and turned back toward the bed. And froze. The suitcase was open. He hadn't opened it. And sitting on the bed was something new. A booklet, red, tattered. On the cover, East Hollow Dormitory Code of Conduct, 1966. He didn't pack this. He didn't even know they had physical copies of that old code anymore. He opened it. Page after page of yellow text. Discipline. Structure. Assigned lights out times, dress codes, room switch penalties. He flipped to the back. One page was smeared with ink, almost wet. The letters glistened, and then shifted, reformed, to read. Room changes after 3 a.m. are forbidden. Violators will be removed. He backed away slowly. Something scraped above him. A hook? No, a chain. Clinking against the pipe. He looked up. A single shoe hung from the ceiling. Not his. And next to it, fresh red fingerprints smeared down the wall. Tyler ripped off the mask. No more prank. No more fun. This wasn't part of the plan. He grabbed the suitcase, yanked the door open, and screamed. The hallway was gone. Just a dark, endless corridor of rusted lockers and burnt wallpaper. The air reeked of mold and something older, like history rotting from the inside. And standing at the end was the warden, 10 feet tall, face smooth as wax, eyes burned out holes, long trench coat soaked in something black. One hand held a clipboard, the other dragged a hook staff that screeched across the tiles as he stepped forward. Tyler slammed the door shut and backed into the room. No. It's not real. You're not. This is a joke. I made this up. The booklet lay open on the bed. The ink bled further down the page. New words formed. Pranksters will be processed into enforcers. His reflection in the mirror twisted. It was still him, but not. Paler, smiling. And behind him, the warden's shadow growing taller. He passed out, or something passed into him. He felt cold fingers pierce the back of his neck, like wires slipping into a socket. A voice, not his, whispered from inside his own jaw. "We maintain order." He screamed without sound. Darkness flooded everything, and when he woke up the next morning, he was back in his original room. Jonah slept peacefully. His prank gear was gone. The mask, the suitcase, the speaker, all gone. But on his nightstand lay the 1966 rulebook and a folded note, scrawled in elegant ink. "Welcome to the Enforcement Committee." Tyler didn't sleep much after that night. He tried, closed his eyes, buried his head under the covers, blasted music through his earbuds. But even in the quiet, he could still hear the chains, somewhere behind the walls, somewhere above the ceiling, in the pipes, in the floorboards, dragging, clinking, tightening. And every morning when he woke up, the rule book was still there, the 1966 Code of Conduct, its pages darker than they were the night before, almost as if they were absorbing the light from a room or something else. He tried burning it once, snuck out behind the dorm's trash bins, lit a match, but the flames died the moment they touched the page, snuffed out like breath on glass. The rule book didn't burn. It never burned. Jonah didn't notice anything wrong at first. He just thought Tyler was acting weird. "Dude, you okay?" he asked one morning. "You look like a raccoon with mono." Tyler didn't respond. He was too busy staring at the floor. Last night, when he got out of bed to use the bathroom, he stepped into something wet. Blood. He was sure of it, but by the time he turned on the light, it was gone. Just a dark patch on the carpet. Damp, cold, smelling faintly of iron. Jonah didn't believe him. Of course he didn't. So Tyler stopped talking, and the silence between them grew longer. It wasn't long before someone else broke the warden's rule. A sophomore named Daniel Collins. He'd been rooming with a friend, but decided to move in with his girlfriend across the hall. The RA had said no, it wasn't approved. But Daniel didn't care. He made the switch around 3:10 a.m. And by breakfast, he was gone, vanished. Clothes left in a pile in front of room 212. Mattress half pulled into the hallway like it had been yanked. No signs of struggle. No noise. Just missing. The only clue? A red booklet, lying where his head would have been. Tyler didn't even need to read it. He already knew what it said. More rules appeared in his dreams. At first, they were whispers, fragments of an older world. Uniforms would be worn after dusk. Speaking in the halls past curfew is forbidden. Visitors must be registered in the head ledger. Ledger? Tyler didn't even know what that was. But by the third night, the rules weren't just dreams. They were orders. He woke with sentences tattooed across his arms in faded ink, phrases that vanished before he could read them. And each day, someone broke one of those long-forgotten rules. And someone vanished. He didn't want to be part of it. He tried ignoring it, even tried transferring out of East Hollow. But every request he made mysteriously vanished from the system. He filled out paperwork, went to the dean, spoke to student services. All of it disappeared. No record of the request. No email confirmation. No appointment scheduled. When he went back to his dorm, the rule book had changed again. A new clause added in delicate handwriting. No withdrawals once induction begins. He was trapped, part of the committee, part of something older than the school, older than the building, older than him. The warden came again on a rainy Thursday. Not in person, at least not completely, but Tyler felt him, standing just beyond the mirror, fogging up the glass without a breath. His outline, tall, faceless, unnatural, just a ripple in the surface. Jonah had left for class. Tyler stared at the mirror for an hour, unable to blink, unable to breathe, and when the steam cleared, a new line appeared in the mirror, etched with something sharp. Next infraction, unauthorized gatherings. Room 217. Tyler didn't want to go. He told himself he wouldn't. But the next night, he found himself standing outside room 217, shoulders soaked in cold sweat, hands trembling as he pushed the door open. Inside, 5 students were laughing, drinking, playing loud music. There was no RA in sight, no chaperone, no permissions, no sign-in sheet. Unauthorized gathering. Tyler's fingers twitched. The rule book pulsed in his backpack. He could feel it calling. But he didn't want this. He didn't want them to die. He opened his mouth to say something, anything, to warn them, to shout, but no sound came out, only the whistle of wind and the rattle of chains. The door slammed shut behind him. The lights blinked once. Then the screaming began. By the time Jonah came looking for him the next morning, room 217 was empty, furniture overturned, red handprints trailing up the walls, and in the middle of the floor, 5 neatly folded red booklets, and 1 empty chair, still warm. Jonah ran, reported everything, but no one believed him. The janitor cleaned it up without asking questions. Campus security dismissed it as prank damage, and when Jonah went back to his dorm, Tyler was sitting on his bed, smiling, eyes vacant, holding a new copy of the code. The transformations weren't always physical, but Jonah knew something was wrong. Tyler spoke less, moved slower. His posture changed. He started waking up at 2:59 every night, just to sit and listen to whispers that crawled through the air vents, to chains that dragged across tile floors no one walked. And once, just once, Jonah swore he saw him writing in the rule book, adding new laws. Enforcers, he whispered in his sleep, must revise the code. His skin had turned gray under the eyes. His teeth looked longer. His shadow flickered at odd angles. Jonah tried to leave, tried to call home, but the phones were dead. Emails bounced. His parents hadn't heard from him in days. Even his social media accounts were locked, replaced with strange posts in old, archaic language. Punishment has been delivered. Order has returned. Hashtag enforce the code. He confronted Tyler one night, shouted at him, demanded answers, but Tyler only blinked, smiled, and slid the rule book across the table. It fell open to a new page. No confrontations after midnight. Infractions will be shared. Jonah felt his skin crawl. Something inside his chest twisted. And then, as he turned to leave, he saw it, the warden, standing in the hallway mirror. Not reflected, present, watching, waiting. That night, Jonah dreamed of the basement, a place he'd never seen. Old filing cabinets, ancient student records, broken trophies, rows of lockers with blood-rusted handles, and at the far end, a single door marked headmaster's office. He walked to it, pushed it open. Inside, rows of chairs, all facing forward, each occupied, every one of them a former student. Mouth sewn shut, eyes wide open, hands folded neatly over identical red booklets. And behind the desk, the warden, writing names. Jonah looked down. His was next. He woke up screaming, but no sound came out, just blood trickling from the corners of his mouth. His lips burned. His reflection was gone. And on his pillow, a folded note. One word written in ink that bled. Soon, Jonah didn't attend classes anymore. No one seemed to notice. Not the professors. Not the students. Not even the administration. His ID stopped working. His name vanished from the attendance list. His dorm key failed to unlock the front door until he stopped trying. The building let him in now. It welcomed him. The mirrors never reflected him. Not anymore. But when he passed them, his breath would fog them up from the inside, like someone else was there, watching, waiting. He tried leaving campus, tried walking straight off the property, bags packed, head down, but every path looped. Every corner brought him back to the same spot, East Hollow Dormitory, Block C, Room 308, Tyler's room. His room now. The lights in the hallway would flicker when he got close. The radiator would hum the same four-note lullaby every night, and the smell of burnt paper followed him everywhere, except there was never any fire, only ash and ink. He found a hidden floor on a Sunday. He wasn't looking for it. He was just pacing, trying to stop the dreams. But the elevator paused on a floor that didn't exist. No button, no number, just a heavy mechanical jolt, and the doors slid open. Inside it was pitch black, no lights, no sound, except for the soft shuffle of feet on the far end. Jonah should have turned back, but he stepped in, and the doors closed behind him. The hallway stretched forever. He passed empty rooms, one after another, each marked with a student ID photo, each door sealed with wax and chains. Some of the faces were familiar, people he'd passed in class, friends from orientation, even Daniel Collins. Their faces had changed, eyes darker, skin bruised, expressions blank, but it was them. And every door had a plaque beneath it, a number, a rule. Rule 3, no roommates after curfew. Rule 12, unauthorized relocation prohibited. Rule 23, assemblies must be registered. Each door a punishment, each room a tomb. The hallway ended at a staircase leading down. Stone steps, colder with each footfall. At the bottom, a giant iron door. No handle, just a slit in the center, and carved into the wall above it. Final infraction. His hands shook. The rule book was already in his pocket, pages curling like leaves. And when he opened it, his name was written at the bottom of the last page. Next to it, in red ink, Final Enforcer. Inside the door there was no light, only a voice. Low, mechanical, tired. Jonah Wells, you are in violation of conduct. He couldn't respond. His throat was dry, heart pounding. You have resisted enforcement. You have denied observance. You have broken the code. He heard chains dragging, a slow rhythmic pull from behind him, from inside him. Every memory he had, the campus, his classes, his friends, was unraveling. Do you accept the role of enforcer? Jonah shook his head. No, he whispered, but the door behind him slammed shut, and the voice said, accepted. He woke up in room 308. No clock, no light, just Tyler's bed, now empty, and a rule book beside him. New cover, new name. Jonah Wells, head enforcer. His hands trembled as he flipped through it. Hundreds of rules, thousands, some in English, others in Latin, some that couldn't be read at all, just scrawls like insects pressed into the paper. And on the final page, a list of names, some crossed out, some still glowing faintly. He recognized two of them, Ethan Carr, Maria Chun, both still alive, both planning a prank. A room switch at 3 a.m. Tonight, Jonah didn't want this, didn't ask for it. But when he tried to stop them, when he ran to the common room, begged them to listen, they laughed. Ethan grinned, held up his phone. You really leaned into this warden thing, huh? You're killing it, bro. We'll tag you on TikTok. They moved anyway, right at 3 o'clock. Room 310 to 312. Jonah screamed, begged, even called campus security. But no one came. No one ever came. And when the clock struck 3:01, the walls began to bleed. Jonah found Ethan's phone first. Still recording. Still live streaming. The footage showed the two of them laughing, then gasping, Then, staring at the mirror as it melted, the warden stepped out, or something wearing his shape, a towering, stitched-together shadow, chains instead of limbs, a key hanging from its spine. It reached for the boys. The video ended. Static. Jonah dropped the phone, stumbled backward, and when he turned around, room 312 was gone. Just a bricked-up wall, and 2 new red booklets on the floor. Days passed, then weeks. Jonah stopped sleeping. He didn't need to anymore, not in the usual way. The dreams were now messages, updates from the code, new violations, new students arriving, new infractions to be recorded. Sometimes he tried to save them, to warn them, to stand in the way of the warden. But every time he interfered, a new rule appeared, and another piece of him disappeared. He no longer cast a shadow. His voice only echoed in mirrors, and his heartbeat slowed to the rhythm of chains. One night, a first-year named Caleb snuck out past curfew to meet a girl on the lawn. Rule 5. No unsupervised visits after dark. Jonah watched from a window, watched the grass turn black beneath Caleb's feet, watched the shadows split open around him, watched the girl scream as Caleb vanished mid-step. Nothing left but his shoes, and a folded note. Observe the hour. Jonah tried not to cry anymore. There were no tears left, only ink and pages. So many pages. Now he waits. He watches the cameras. He reads the roster. He records the names. A guardian, a prisoner, a victim, an enforcer, all in one. They say no one lives past sophomore year in East Hollow. That's true, because by then you're either gone or part of the code. Sometimes students knock on room 308. They say they're looking for the ghost guy or the rule book freak. Jonah answers, smiles, offers tea, and behind his calm voice, behind the pale flicker of his reflection, something else watches. The warden, or what's left of him, or what's growing inside Jonah. The chains have taken root. The code has accepted him. And as long as students break the rules, he'll be here, watching, writing, waiting. If you're still awake, and the lights in your room haven't flickered yet, consider yourself lucky. But if you hear footsteps outside your door at 3:00 a.m., don't open it. Thank you for stepping into the shadows with us tonight on Mr. DarXnights. If this tale chilled your spine and kept your eyes wide open, like, share, and subscribe to stay close to the darkness. More true horror stories are waiting just beyond the next knock. Sleep tight, or don't.